Thank God it's Friday, Eastern Football League lovers. It's week 13 in the EFL, and there's plenty of great games to go through across all four divisions tomorrow afternoon. My name is Ben Warren-Smith, and joining me again this week on the Friday preview is Daniel Cencic. G'day, Dan.
Very good afternoon to you, BWS. Fantastic. Can't wait to get my teeth stuck into this one.
And the man who is always with us on a Friday afternoon is the big man who milks cows for a living, Peter Baird. G'day, Pete.
Yeah, my favourite way to spend a Friday afternoon, going through all the big games across the Eastern Football League, all four divisions for tomorrow afternoon. Let's get into it, mate.
Let's start with Division 4 then, and the first game we're going to have a look at, Peter Baird, is the game out at Forest Hill Reserve between the Zebras and the Sharks.
Yeah, this game's probably drawn a little bit more importance and significance after Park Orchard's really gallant effort last week against South Belgrave. They led the Saints by 7 points at three-quarter time, only to be overrun in the last quarter. South Belgrave kicked 7 goals to 1, but Park Orchards were really, really competitive. Earlier in the year, we went out to Boronia Reserve to see Park Orchards take on Forest Hill in a radio game out there, and it was an absolute thriller. There was nothing in the game until the last 2 or 3 minutes when Forest Hill kicked a couple of goals to run away narrow winners. I think there's going to be a little bit more of the same tomorrow afternoon out at Forest Hill Reserve. The Forest Hill side haven't been great this year. They've been serviceable. They sit in 6th position on the ladder. They've had 6 wins and 5 losses for the year. They're outside that top 5, but only by percentage. They've played an extra game than 5th place Sylvan and the 2 teams above them who they're on equal points with this year. So this is a must-win game for the Zebras. Last week, they defeated Surrey Park by 64 points. Michael Cardamone in great form for them, kicking 6 goals last week. Sykes with 3. Park Orchards, though, I just really like the way they're going about their business this year. I'm going to tip the Sharks in a bit of an upset. I reckon they've got what it takes, and they've got that little bit of belief that Peter Nicholson's instilled into the group that they can take it up to some of the top sides, and I'm going to tip them to get a bit of a win out there at Forest Hill Reserve tomorrow afternoon.
Going to have to disagree with you in the first game that we've gone through. Pete, Forest Hill, they sit 2 games clear of Park Orchards. It's a do-or-die game for them. Their season is still alive. Park Orchards is maybe hanging on by a thread. The Zebras at home, they'll win this game. 2 games at home in a row for Sylvan this weekend as they welcome a Surrey Park Football Club who are still looking for their first win, Dan.
These next few weeks of the season are going to be crucial for Sylvan. They sit 5th on the ladder, so they're in the top 5, and they're stuck in that logjam of sides all on 6 wins for the year. Talking about sides like Ferntree Gully, Nunawading, and Forest Hill, really all in the hunt for finals action, and Sylvan have looked good so far this year. The only thing that separates them from the next side up is 0.6%, and with Nunawading like 4th placed on the ladder, playing South Belgrave this weekend, Sylvan will see this as a huge opportunity to bank the 4 points and build on percentage that will really count towards their finals chances over the next couple of months. One of the main problems for Surrey Park, though, last week was that they struggled against the talls and smalls of Forest Hill. Cardamone, the Shoulders boys, all gave them headaches. And with Ash Froud in really good form this season, and we must remember he has played Division 1 footy and against the best, I expect to see more of the same tomorrow afternoon. And Sylvan should win this one, bank themselves a good percentage, and see themselves right for the finals.
It's looking more and more likely, Dan, the percentage is going to play a part come finals time or the last week of the home and away season. Sylvan need to build on their percentage. They're around the pack of about 4 sides who sit around the 110% mark. They need to build on that tomorrow, and I see it as a good opportunity for them to do so. They'll beat them easy. Let's head out to Canterbury Sports Ground now, Peter Baird, with Canterbury taking on Ferntree Gully. How do you see this one going?
I don't think a lot needs to be said about this game, Ben Warren-Smith. Ferntree Gully are just starting to get that form back we've seen over the last couple of years where they've gone deep into September action. They've moved themselves up to 3rd position on the ladder, whereas things haven't gone quite according to plan for Canterbury this year. Tony Rose departed as coach. Mick Harmer's taken over the job, and last week they weren't able to match it with a Kilsyth side who, although below them on the ladder, put them away by 61 points. Ferntree Gully are going to have too much class for Canterbury. They've got too much to play for. Ricky Aitkins in great form, having been named in the best 6 times this year for the Ferntree Gully Eagles. I'm super confident, Ben Warren-Smith, that Ferntree Gully will have a quite convincing win against Canterbury tomorrow afternoon.
Must-win game for Ferntree Gully tomorrow afternoon. After losing to Kilsyth nearly a month ago, they've had the break. They've beaten Surrey Park. They were challenged by the Eastern Lions last week, and they were able to overcome that challenge and run away with a good win. Tomorrow is another step in the right direction for them if they want to play finals. They're thereabouts, but they're thereabouts with a lot of other sides too. This is a game they must win, and I think Bernie Ryan will lead them home. Nunawading head up the mountain, Daniel Cencic, tomorrow to South Belgrave Recreation Reserve to tackle the Red Hot Saints.
Yeah, Saints are red hot at the moment, BWS, and the ladder suggests this will be a very close game. It's second versus fourth, but I'm of the belief that it won't be close. Nunawading will no doubt be refreshed, though, coming off the bye, and South Belgrave had to fight really hard last week against a very determined Park Orchards outfit who gave them a bit of a scare up to three-quarter time. But I think what we can expect is a free-flowing affair with plenty of goals being kicked. So far, both sides this season have been really attacking in their approach, which has been fantastic. They're ranked second and third in Division 4 for scores, so there's a stat to take on board there. But two main concerns for Nunawading is that tests against the better sides this season have been unimpressive. The result against the Basin a couple of weeks ago supports the belief that there are only two sides vying for the flag this year in Division 4. And Nunawading get one last shot at redemption to debunk that theory this weekend, but I don't think they'll have the firepower to match South Belgrave. You just can't go past blokes like Lucas Appleby kicking 7 and continuing his brilliant season last week. I think South Belgrave will do this one.
It's a really big challenge for Nunawading tomorrow if they want to take that next step and take it right up to the sides that are at the top of the ladder and really be a chance come finals time. Tough patch to play on South Belgrave Recreation Reserve when you're the away side. The Saints, they know how to play that ground so well. They've got so many players in good form in Dean Burnell, Brock Ferguson, Kane Jeffries, David Taylor. They've got a great spread right across the park, and I can't see Nunawading getting within 6 goals tomorrow. Final game in Division 4, Peter Baird, is the Basin taking on Kilsyth out at Batterham Reserve. How do you see this one going, big fella?
There's a lot to like about the way the Basin have gone about this business this year. They just go from strength to strength. They've got power forwards, Brent Galiccio, Andy Coltrera. They've got plenty of experience there with Matty Smith and Todd Power. Their midfield's great. Guys like Clinton King, ex-AFL player, Maxi Kruger, Daniel Dembraber going through the middle. But they're coming up against the Kilsyth side, who we heard on the huddle on Wednesday night, fancy their chances in a bit of what they team as a bit of a rivalry game, a bit of feeling between the clubs dating back a few years, and they're going to fancy their chances going into the game and hopefully catch the Basin napping. I don't think it's going to happen though, boys. The Basin have just put away challenges week in, week out this year. They're clearly the ladder leader in Division 4 this year, and I think they'll have a comfortable win. Look for a margin in excess of 10 goals.
Just when Kilsyth thought they'd run themselves into a little bit of form, they come up against the might of the Basin Bears this weekend. The Basin just really can't do anything wrong at the moment. Cowley Shaw, Matty Smith, Power, Kruger, King. You just look at their list and you just get excited when you look at the Basin side. There's no doubt they're going to get a challenge from Kilsyth. It may be a half, it may be 3/4, but I think the Basin will do it comfortably. 5 great games we've just gone through in Division 4 tomorrow afternoon. As you go local for your football, hope your team wins. The closeness of Division 3 this year, Daniel Cencic, is getting everybody's eye, and there's great games happening right across Division 3 tomorrow afternoon. The first of 6 games we're going to have a look at is Warrandyte taking on Coldstream down at Warrandyte Reserve.
Well, we speak about the closeness of Division 3 this year, and I'm expecting this game to be close. Here we have two sides that are struggling, but one thing's for certain. Teams that are struggling love to win matches. There's no doubt about it, and both of these teams will be well and truly fired up for this one. Even though I've spoken about Warrandyte holding an advantage over many clubs due to their ground size, it's a very big ground out there at Warrandyte. It isn't going to worry Coldstream too much. Their ground out at Coldstream is very similar in the fact that it's got similar dimensions and it will absolutely suit them, so the conditions are on their side as well. But the main problem for both teams this year to date is they have conceded some real cricket scores, if you like, against their opposition, and they don't attack as effectively as some of the sides they've struggled against. But it wasn't a problem for Warrandyte last week. A close loss to Wanturna South would have hurt, but for Coldstream, their 60-point loss to North Ringwood and conceding 20 goals is something they'll really want to bounce back from and turn around. Michael Morello's been in fantastic form this season, kicked 36 goals, and Johnny Pignataro for Coldstream's been fantastic as well, 27 goals. So we could be in for a bit of a shootout, and I'd love to pick Coldstream in this one, but I think Warrandyte have that competitive edge, and we saw them scare finals fancies in Wanturna South last weekend. I think Warrandyte by about 4 goals.
Warrandyte's last 2 performances at home have been really encouraging. They've kicked some big scores and they've come away with some good wins. Tomorrow they take on Coldstream, the side that sits on the bottom of the ladder with only 1 win to date. But they've still had some good players throughout the season, Coldstream. The double hyphen, Keegan Lee Mills-Horn, Daniel Price and Rod Williams. They've been up there playing good football. But when you look at the Warrandyte side, they've had some players who had some ripper years and maybe having a play for the SEN Division 3 team of the season in Holman and Appleby. Tim Hookie's had a good year as well. So Warrandyte, they look to have more strength, and especially at home tomorrow, I think the Bloods are going to make it 3 in a row at home. Good contest looming, Peter Baird, out at Walker Reserve tomorrow with Wanturna South taking on the red-hot Templestowe.
Yeah, a real chance for the Devils to stake a claim and really set themselves up as a team that could potentially make finals this year. A lot's been said that if Wanturna South get in there, they might go a long way come finals time. This is a chance to match it against one of the teams that's been in red-hot form this year. With Heathmont and Ringwood both above them on the ladder having crunch games, Heathmont playing Mitcham and Ringwood playing North Ringwood this week, this looms as a really must-win game for the Wantirna South Devils if they really want to have a stake at moving into that top 5. The problem is they're coming up against a Templestowe side that are just going from strength to strength. An ominous sign for them is the return of form of Jamie Bain last week, named in their best. Had a bit of a slow start to the year, but we know how good he can be. Jamie Carpenter, the recruit they picked up from the Whitehorse Pioneers, named in their best again last week for the Templestowe side. And big Lukey Francis getting back into their best for Templestowe. You throw in Kane McGarmez, who's in medal-winning form again this year. We know how good he can be. And the Templestowe side just look to have all the answers. I think Wantirna South, though, they're a team to be reckoned with. I really like the year so far of Tim Lee, playing a key position at centre-half back. He's only a young fella, but he's really stepped up, and he's helping out some of the more experienced players around the Devils lineup, guys like Chris Phillips and Scotty Edgecombe, who are having fantastic years as well. I really see this one as going right down to the line. Templestowe have been a form side, but I reckon the Devils can match it with them. I'm going to tip Templestowe, but only just. I reckon they can get up in a nail-biter out there at Walker Reserve.
Well, the last time the Devils played at home, they took on the top of the table North Ringwood Saints, and they ended up getting up by 1 point that day, so they will not be scared that the Templestowe side's coming at them in some pretty good form too. Pete, you mentioned how many good players Templestowe have, and we talk about them every other week, but they're in super form. Wantirna South, who's going to step up for them tomorrow? Is it going to be Taylor Leggett? Is it going to be Scott Edgecombe? They need all their guns to fire. Phillips and, of course, Tim Lee, who you've already mentioned. At home, they're going to be a hard side to beat, but I think Templestowe just have enough goal-kicking power to get over the line and kick a bigger score tomorrow. The Dockers just. Match of the round in Division 3 is the local derby out at Boronia Reserve. Daniel Cencic with North Ringwood taking on Ringwood. This should be a beauty.
Yeah, certainly is match of the round this week, and it was great to see North Ringwood come back last week after a couple of losses. And I think now that those losses have been had, they can focus on the bigger picture of building momentum 5 or 6 weeks out from the finals. And Ringwood sit outside the 4 and will realise that this is a big opportunity for them to really give themselves the best chance of making the finals. We're coming into the business end of the season as well. This is where these sort of games separate the best from the rest. So it's a massive test for Ringwood, and we'll know where they're at by 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. And if we look at Ringwood's team, they really have quality players on every line. Talking about the Burmeisters, Katsiavos, Farmer, King. So North Ringwood will really need to focus on these types to get the result thereafter. And Sharp for North Ringwood's been in fantastic form this season. He kicked 7 goals last week, so it'll be interesting to see who gets the job on him. Will it be McCann? Will it be Reeves? Will it be McLean? But I think North Ringwood are class above this season, and I think they're the team to beat. They should get the job done on Saturday afternoon.
Only 2 points separated these two sides last time, Daniel Cencic, and I get the feeling it's going to be a very close affair out there tomorrow at Boronia Reserve. Ringwood enjoy a challenge. We've noticed that as the seasons unfold in 2012. They started off a little bit patchy, and then they've taken all before them since then. As you mentioned, Farmer's been in great form along with Burmeister, but the Jones boys, Luke and Vinny, they've been great, and of course Luke Davis as well. North Ringwood, they've got a star lineup. If their good players play well, North Ringwood generally win the game. Tomorrow it's up to the likes of Kelly and Melzer and Wood and of course Matty Weeks. Anthony Sharp, who doesn't normally play forward, kicked a bag last week. Whether he'll line up there tomorrow is another story. Very hard side to beat at home at Boronia Reserve. They've shown that over the last 4 years, North Ringwood. I don't think they're going to get done tomorrow. They might just scrape in. Chirnside Park will be looking to return to a bit of form tomorrow. Peter Baird against a Glen Waverley Hawks side who had a surprise loss last weekend.
They did. The Glen Waverley Hawks have been travelling very nicely. They'd put together 7 wins on the trot, but last week they were caught napping by Mitcham at home. This was a loss that would be ringing a little bit of alarm bells for Mick Gore and his crew. They would like to be building a bit of momentum coming into the finals, which they're going to definitely play a part in this year. A worry for the Glen Waverley Hawks is earlier in the year, Chirnside Park stole the game against them. This is one of only 3 losses the Glen Waverley Hawks have had this year when they hosted Chirnside Park at home. This week they travel out to Kimberley Reserve to take on the Panthers, and don't you worry, Brett Davidson will be reminding his players that they have got what it takes to match it with the Hawks, having knocked them off earlier in the year. I reckon the Glen Waverley Hawks will be out to prove a point and show they're a better side than what they dished up last week against Mitcham, and to prove that they've got what it takes to defeat Chirnside Park this year. Chirnside Park have been disappointing. They haven't won since late May, and I can't see them knocking off the Glen Waverley Hawks tomorrow. Even though it is out at Kimberley Reserve, the Hawks are going to be too strong, and they should get back on the winners list and consolidate their spot within the top 3, securing the double chance this year.
We saw Chirnside Park firsthand a fortnight ago, and they were really disappointing that afternoon against Montana South. Their season was on the line, and it sort of dwindled away since then. They challenged Ringwood last week for a period of the game, but fell short. Can they turn it around tomorrow? They'll probably be happy that they're meeting the Glen Waverley Hawks on a bit of a downer from last week. Are they going to be quick enough to turn things around? They go out to a ground that they won't have played too much footy at over the years, and it may be very tough for them, but they have got the class, don't they? Sam Zickman, Riddle, Fia Tutu, who was quiet last weekend, he doesn't like playing two bad games in a row. Hancock and Kennor. I can't see the Glen Waverley Hawks going down in this one, and they'll probably win by about 5 goals plus. A game creating an extra little bit of interest tomorrow, Daniel Cencic out at Tormore Reserve, is the Boronia Hawks taking on the Whitehorse Pioneers, with Boronia being led by their new coach Drew O'Hare.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Boronia come out this week. Of course, both teams coming off losses last week. Boronia were very gallant, but the Whitehorse Pioneers were very disappointing against a red-hot Templestowe outfit. So very, very disappointing result for them there. But Boronia will rue the slow start that they had last week against Heathmont. They were 57 points down at half-time and lost by only 7. And it could have been an unbelievable comeback, but it holds them in good stead for this week's match. Hunger and desire comes from close losses, and that's exactly what they'll have. But looking at the halftime score of last week's game, Boronia are so much better than that. An interesting player in their team is McKernan. Traditionally a defender, but was able to go forward last week and kick a couple of goals. Those types of players are very, very hard to match up on, the swingman types of players, because they know how to play the role of a defensive forward and they can do damage both ways, holding a big advantage over their opponents. So very interesting fact there. The Whitehorse Pioneers need someone to stand up this weekend. Will it be O'Brien? Will it be Gleed? Will it be Mates? Will it be Karen? All good players in their team, but they need a player to really stand up and stamp their authority on the match and then filter through the rest of the side. And they have those players who can also do that. Strachan, Dalgleish, incredibly handy players. But Boronia have too many in good form at the moment. Bolton, Allen, Allison and Matty Smith as well. They should get the job done tomorrow afternoon.
There was raised eyebrows earlier on in the week when it was announced that Peter Bennett had left the Boronia Football Club, with the side sitting in 4th position with 8 wins for the year. How are they going to react with the new coach Drew O'Hare coming in this week? He's been around the club, he's been the reserves coach, so he knows the players, he knows the list well. Usually sides will answer with a win when a coach leaves. This week it might just happen for them as well, because they come up against the Whitehorse Pioneers, who only have 2 wins to date. Boronia ain't going to let this one slip. They're well entrenched inside the 4 and expect them to still be there come 6 p.m. tomorrow night. Massive match looms out at H.E. Parker Reserve tomorrow afternoon, Peter Baird, with the Jets returning to form last week, taking on Mitcham, who also found some form.
Yeah, both these teams had good wins last week. Heathmont knocking off Boronia by 7 points and Mitcham getting the job done against the Glen Waverley Hawks by 10 points. It's going to be a bit tougher for Mitcham on the road. They're not out at the MCG of the EFL Walker Park this week, and we know how good Heathmont are at home. Is it last chance saloon for the Mitcham side this week? I'm not quite so sure just yet that's the case. They're only a game outside the top 5 in Division 4. They can't afford to let Heathmont get a game ahead of them, so I reckon they'll have everything to play for, and Scott Homewood will have his team ready to fire on all cylinders as they run out onto the park tomorrow afternoon. Heathmont, though, we saw their firepower return to the fore last week. 5 goals to both Darren Sheen and Leo Odermatt. It just proves such a huge obstacle for teams to overcome when both those guys are kicking goals. I don't know if Mitcham have the answer to nullify that firepower that Heathmont have up forward. We heard Scott Homewood talk about how he used Ben Law in a key defensive role last week. He probably has to go to Darren Sheen and keep him to less than 5 goals if the Tigers are any chance. I think Mitcham are a chance, but I'm still going to go with Heathmont only because it's at home at H.E. Parker Reserve. The Jets to get up by a margin less than 3 goals.
I've struggled to get a read on both of these sides all season, Peter Baird, and they don't make it any easier for me tomorrow as they come up against each other out at H.E. Parker Reserve. The Jets, you talk about the stars of the Jets in the Sheens and the Odermatts, but I like more of the unsung heroes in the Anthony Hickeys and the David Sindries and the Peter Forsyths. They've been holding up their positions all seasons for the Jets, and they've been doing their job week in, week out. And if you couple that with the stars that they have around the ground, well, I think that they're going to be too strong tomorrow. If Quilty and Smith and the 2 Bens, Law and Miller, can fire for Mitcham, anything is possible out there. They have proved that they can turn it on and match it with some really good sides. Can they do it 2 weeks in a row? I think they just might fall short. Jets just. Well, that's all the games in Division 3 tomorrow afternoon. Some ripper ones in there too. So hopefully you enjoy your day as you go local for your football. Hope your team wins. 5 games across Division 2 tomorrow afternoon, Daniel Cencic. The first game we're going to have a look at is out at Donvale Reserve with the informed Magpies taking on Upper Ferntree Gully, who have been in okay form themselves.
Well, it was a very impressive win last week for Donvale. Players like Murphy, Kenoff, Fenwick, Di Stefano. It was a really impressive win last week for Donvale. I was very impressed with the way they played. Murphy, Kenoff, Fenwick, Di Stefano, to name a few, all very handy players so far this season for Donvale. Upper Ferntree Gully had to fight hard for their result last week as well. 3-point winners over the Waverley Blues, and it will be interesting to see what sort of effect a close game and a hard, tough game like that has on the side the very next week. And the challenge is to back it up this week. Huge game for both sides, though. 1 win and a draw separates them on the ladder, and Upper Ferntree Gully are only 1 win out of the 4, so this is like a mini-final for them, and a loss will see them severely behind the 8 ball in terms of making the finals. I think players like Alex Calder's been very hard to match up on this season for Upper Ferntree Gully. Been named in the best 8 times, and also Shannon Graham, fantastic player for them as well. I think Upper Ferntree Gully will take this one.
Yeah, it's going to be a close one, isn't it, Dan? But I'm going to have to go against you. Donvale in pretty good form of late, and they've been pretty good at their home patch too at Donvale Reserve this year. They'll take a lot out of that win last week against Doncaster East. They ended up running away with it really in the last quarter. It was a big task for them that day. It's a big task for them tomorrow against Upper Ferntree Gully. They need to hold Tim Risley. They need to hold Brad Carroll. If they can hold Jay Sherlock, they're home and hosed Donvale tomorrow. They've got the class in Pettigrove and Kruger and Toast, like he said already. Donvale have the class on the paddock to win this game tomorrow and to run away from Upper Ferntree Gully if they're up to it. I think they are too. Huge match out at Seabeck Oval tomorrow. Bayswater heading out to take on Roeville. This is going to be a good game, Pete.
Yeah, 2 of the fiercest local rivals in the Eastern Football League will clash out at Seabeck Oval, so it's sure to be a bumper crowd out there. The Bayswater Footy Club, their season's on the line. They were fantastic last week when they took on ladder leaders Muralbark at home at Bayswater Oval. They got the win by 10 points to keep their season alive. They're a game and a half outside that top 4, behind Donvale, and if Daniel Cencic's right and the Upper Gully can do Bayswater a favour and knock off Donvale, they will see this game against old rival Roeville as the big chance to get themselves back in the finals hunt. I don't think it can happen, though. Roeville are in just too good a form at the moment. They're a very settled side. 16 of their players have played all games this year. That's the most of any club in the Eastern Football League. They are very settled. They have players that can go forward and back. Their forwards are interchanging beautifully with their defence. Matty Stanley's in fantastic form. He's kicked 28 goals for the year, a big bag of 6 last week. He'll be sure to be catching the umpire's eye and getting votes in the Division 2 best and fairest this year, and Alex Frawley's just a dynamo in the midfield for them. Their 128-point victory over Doncaster last week must be sending warning signs to the rest of the Division 2 that the Hawks are up and about. Bayswater, though, they showed Muralbark that they've still got what it takes and they're not yet a force to be written off this year. David Burmeister kicked 3 for them last week, as did Wayne McInerney. They're both having great years. And throw into the mix some of their unsung heroes, guys like Nevins and Jones and Cunningham, Ola Renshaw. They were all named in their best last week, and they're starting to answer Neil Winterton's call for their second-tier players to stand up. I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow afternoon out at Seabeck Oval in front of the Roeville faithful. Roeville should just about close the door on Bayswater's season and put them away, and I don't think they'll enjoy anything more than doing that. Hawks for mine.
It was a great response by Bayswater to beat Muralbark last weekend after going down to Doncaster East and keep their season still alive. I think they'll be right up to the task against Roeville tomorrow. How close are they going to get? Maybe just not close enough. Matty Stanley, as you said, Pete, is having a super season in Division 2 this year. Mitch Garner's been pretty good. And, of course, Kindle and Ryle, they've also been serviceable for the Hawks. I think at home they're going to be too strong for Bayswater. Who knows? Can Coombe, can Nevins, can Schroeder, can these players all step up along with Burmeister and McInerney and just create a terrific contest out there tomorrow, which I'm sure it's going to be. We've got Ray Baird on standby because we know it's going to be close, but I'm going the Hawks just. Mulgrave versus Doncaster tomorrow at Mulgrave Reserve. Daniel Cencic, is tomorrow the day the Lions will notch their first win?
I don't think so, BWS. This is a game that Mulgrave will really fancy their chances in. And if we go by the ladder, it says it will be close and anyone's game. But I'm not so sure. Look, Doncaster haven't had a good year, but, you know, they're a side with players and names like Batista and Arcus Limachese, and they'll always be capable of playing fantastic footy regardless of their ladder position. With Lilydale up forward for Doncaster and Mulgrave's defensive unit leaking some pretty big scores this season, 1,270. It's a huge danger game presenting itself to the Lions. Doncaster's spread of goal kicks this season. Muller, Anarchis, Lilydale, Tranquilli, Batista, Martin, all figure in the goal kicking on a weekly basis. I think on that basis alone, Doncaster will win.
I've ummed and ahed on this game for a few days, Daniel Cencic, and I'm going to agree with you tomorrow. I think Doncaster just might have enough on the park to get this one. Ben McGarnis and James Cavalis have been in super form this year, along with Matty Schimmelbusch. Their backline has held up as it has held up for so many years now. Mulgrave have got some standout players who have had some ripper seasons. It's probably just their second-tier group of players that they need to step up to enable them to get their first win for the year. Tomorrow they'll need Sia Koulis and Parker, Knowles and Robbie Edwards. They all need to fire, they all need to win their position, and they all need to win it well to get on top of Doncaster. Both sides coming off defeats last week and more or less coming off defeats for most of the season. Doncaster got the chocolates earlier on in the year. I think that they might get them again tomorrow. Match of the day in Division 2 and of course the EFL's match of the day on 98.1 Radio Eastern is the big clash out at Heights Reserve between Mulgrave and Montrose. First versus third, Pete.
Yeah, both sides not bringing great form into this game. A fortnight ago, Montrose dropped a game at Cencic Oval against Roval, and last week they only defeated Mulgrave by 6 goals. It's not fantastic form to be bringing in, but Mulgrave went down last week against Bayswater at Bayswater Oval by 10 points as well. Both these teams are genuine top 3 teams in Division 2 this year. But we've seen 4 times this year, Ben Warren-Smith, the team that sits on top of the Division 2 ladder has been knocked off its perch. I reckon it might happen again tomorrow afternoon. I think Mulgrave will be looking to bounce back from their loss against Bayswater. A surprise loss, you might think, out at Bayswater Oval. The kid Teletsky's doing a fantastic job up forward for them. Mike Smith's been great through the midfield. I just reckon they might have a little bit more to play for. Montrose answered the call with a win last week, but they were only workmanlike in their performance against Mulgrave. I'm going to tip Mulgrave. It is the radio game. You'll be having a good look at it, Ben Warren-Smith. So I'm sure everybody will be tuning in to see how this one unfolds. I'm going to tip Mulgrave at home.
We've been excited about this one on the media team for over a month now, Peter Baird, and I disagree with you on who I think will win. I'm going for Montrose tomorrow. I think it's going to be unbelievably close, but I'm going on form versus form. Montrose coming off a win last week. Mulgrave going down to Bayswater in what was a very tough affair out there. Not too sure how well the ground's been holding up out at Heights Reserve this year. I think it'll be quite heavy underfoot. Montrose have got the stars in Johnson and Goodman. Big man Andrew Haining can work in wet conditions, Anand and Gardle. And of course, new recruit Adam Cook, who's had a super season to date. Mulgrave have their own stars, Pete, and rightfully so. They sit in the top 3 on the ladder. McManus and Giorgio. Matty Polkinghorne loves to play in big games. And of course, as you mentioned, Smith and the big kid. Is the kid due for a bag tomorrow? If he kicks a bag, Mulgrave will win. If he doesn't, I think Montrose will get this one just. Last game in Division 2 tomorrow, Daniel Cencic is out at Zerby's Reserve with Doncaster East taking on the Waverley Blues. How do you see this one panning out?
Well, it shapes to be an absolute cracker BWS. Doncaster East sitting 7th on the ladder, Waverley Blues 8th, but there's 2 games between them, so people can decide for themselves whether it's going to be close or not. But you look at a lot of the players at Doncaster East. We've got Travis Gordon, Rami Ayubi, Jared Marshall, Shane Thompson, Daniel Mead, all in blistering form at the moment, and if the Waverley Blues can shut down those players, then they go a long way to getting the result thereafter. Another player we can't not mention is Michael Parthenides. He's been in brilliant form this season, and he's very hard to stop on his day. Look, I'm going to go for Doncaster East, but only by the barest of margins.
When these two sides met in round 3 earlier on in the season, neither side had won a game. Since that date, Doncaster have won 5 and the Waverley Blues 3. I don't know which way this one's going to go. The Waverley Blues, they've got good players this year in Glenn Marnie. He's had a ripper year. Mitch Hayes and Greg Hinson. But Doncaster East at home, they generally are a good side, but sometimes they decide not to turn up and play. They will have looked at last week's result and been very disappointed. Their season still hangs on by the smallest of threads. They have a favourable draw. This is one of those games that they'd have in the favourable section, and look to them to rebound tomorrow. Lions by 3 goals. That's all the Division 2 games tomorrow afternoon as you go local for your football. Let's hope your team wins. Time for Division 1 now, Peter Baird. 6 great games across the east tomorrow, with the first one out at the LSO with Lilydale taking on South Croydon.
How very impressive Lilydale were last week as they met Knox out at Knox Gardens Reserve. Daniel Breeze was in fantastic form, took the game by the scruff of the neck in the first half and again late in the game. James Roach played a full four-quarter game. He was super. Ryan Breeze was fantastic through the midfield, and they found a couple of young players to have the Lilydale Falcons this year in Nick Sargent and our Trojan workhorse, Robbie Allen. It's really hard to think that Lilydale won't get a win against South Croydon tomorrow. South Croydon, they went down by 10 goals last week against Vermont out at Cheong Park, and that'd be very disappointing for the Bulldogs. They've had good service this year out of Anthony Descent and Ben Osborne. Nick Molnar's trying hard for them, and Daniel King's been named in their best 7 times. I just don't think that they've got what it takes to match a Lilydale side who looked very, very slick last week when they took on Knox. I'm going to tip the Falcons in this one. I think they'll have too much firepower for South Croydon, and I think Simon Rourke's got this team believing that they belong in Division 1, having come up from Division 2 last year. South Croydon need a win to open the gap between them and Croydon in that relegation battle, but I don't think it's going to come tomorrow. Lilydale at home are very strong, and after their performance last week, I'm sticking with the Falcons.
You'd be crazy not to, Peter Baird, because the Falcons have been in ripper form over the last months of football. They've got themselves a couple of scalps, which before that time we would have thought they wouldn't have come anywhere near of. They seem to have hit a bit of form come the second half of the season. Ryan Breeze, I know you mentioned Daniel Breeze, but Ryan Breeze has been in super form. Grant Hill was almost best on ground last week with a shutdown roll on Williams. And of course Ben Power and Chris Shaw, who have been around the club, they know how important a game like this is tomorrow. They want to elevate Lilydale's position. They just want to keep climbing for the rest of the year. South Croydon, what a vital game it is. They want that 2-game break away from Croydon, away from that relegation territory. Is it going to come tomorrow? Let's hope the doggies come to play, but will it be enough? 4th place Vermont take on Croydon tomorrow. Daniel Cencic out at Vermont Recreation Reserve. Will this be an easy win for the Eagles?
A lot of people would say so, and I say so as well. 4th versus last place on the ladder, but take nothing away from Croydon. They've really improved on recent weeks, and of course they had that great win against South Croydon a few weeks ago. But if you look at Vermont's lineup, Ryan Mullett, Bermuda, Daniel Mendez, Millhouse, all reliable players that can get the job done on game day. But when you look at Croydon, Hughes, Callagher, Grant, all fantastic players as well. But I think it'll be a lay-down misère Vermont's way. Vermont at home, too strong.
Vermont are going for 6 wins in a row tomorrow afternoon. They are nearly the informed side behind Norwood in Division 1. Their last 4 weeks have shown that they've returned to some really good football. Since the break, you really get the feeling that Vermont have taken the next step to their season. No longer are they just looking to make it into the finals, but they're looking to go that one more. And how far will they go? Well, it starts tomorrow with Croydon and putting away a side that they should put away. A game that you're really looking forward to going out to tomorrow at Pat Wright Senior Oval, Peter Baird, is Noble Park taking on Scoresby. What a game this will be at the Bullring.
Yeah, a replay of the last 2 Division 1 grand finals. It's so mouth-watering. I bypassed the radio game. I gave that a rain check. I'm heading out there to do a round-the-grounds report from this one. I couldn't resist. Noble Park, they're still thereabouts. They're probably not the dominant team we've seen over the last couple of years. They find themselves in 5th position on the ladder, but they are 3 games clear of 6th. They will make finals. It's just now about where they're going to finish in that top 5. They come up against a team who they've had their measure on that big dance over the last couple of years in Scoresby. The Magpies were very impressive last week. They did what a top side should do against the bottom team, defeating Croydon by 93 points. Their midfield's in fantastic form at the moment. Adam Parker, Matty Krosick, Sean Cross, David Marcius. They're all having great years. But the big battle I'm looking forward to tomorrow afternoon is the ruck duel between Chucky Manson, who was named best on ground last week for the Bulls, coming up against big Luke Van Reenen for the Magpies. I'm really looking forward to also seeing how the AAA forward line of Noble Park goes. Shane Allen, Ziggy Olwen and Georgie Angelopoulos running havoc out there at Pat Wright Senior Oval, as they like to do. As I've said before on the Friday preview, Ben Warren Smith, I have one rule in tipping in the EFL. I don't tip against Noble Park at home. I'm going for the Bulls.
Both these sides really enjoy playing each other, don't they? The battles they've had over the last couple of years are quite memorable. You're a lucky man to be heading out there tomorrow, Peter Baird, because these two sides have had some great tussles over the last few years. It's always a fiery clash. It's always a tough affair. And Noble Park generally get the chocolates. Who are going to be the players to stand up tomorrow? Is it going to be the like of Tyson Mitchum, who's had such a great season so far, or a Tom Wilkinson, or even a Luke Cody? Blend these guys in with the likes of Ziggy Elwyn and Stewie Kemperman, Shane Allen, Luke Mann, and Noble Park are a very good football side. Scoresby, they need Bronsgeet and Cosson, Cross and McConnon. All these players have to fire for themselves. I know I keep saying that players have to fire for their sides to win, but in such a tight competition, 3/4 of the side have to win their position for a side to get over the line. It's a toss of the coin game tomorrow, Pete, it really is, but Noble Park at home, I'm going to agree with you on that one. A good rivalry is built up between Borwin and Blackburn in recent years, Daniel Cencic, and tomorrow the Tigers head down to the Panther Pit.
Yeah, I watched these two sides do battle last time at SEN Park, and the difference after half-time was the Baldwin players through the midfield, such as Ben Harris and Ryan McMahon, really running the Panthers off their feet, winning clearance after clearance and doing damage on the scoreboard. But look, Blackburn are a really hard team to read. On their day, they have some really damaging players that can play great footy, the likes of the captain Prendergast, Christian Heighton, Sam McCauley, great defender there. But one player Blackburn have missed this season is Paul Bunn. SEN Division 1 Team of the Year last season. He's the type of player that gives McCauley a bit of a chop out against those better opposition forwards, and Baldwin do have some of those fantastic forwards in their side. Look at players like Luke Barker, who was kept relatively quiet though last time these two teams met. But last week I feel Blackburn did a great job in nullifying some of those strong East Burwood forwards, Henshaw being one, and Mariani, when he goes forward, he can kick goals, but he was kept quiet as well. And the challenge this week for Blackburn is to back it all up again, but I think Baldwin will be too strong.
Baldwin had a really tough game against Norwood out at Boronia Reserve last week. It was a top of the table clash and they went down in that. Their form's too good to go past, back against them tomorrow at Moreton Park. Goebbels and Tregear and McMahon have been super for Baldwin this year, along with Rod Crow, little Stevie Kenner and Ben Harris. They just have super talent from full back to full forward, the Baldwin Tigers. Blackburn, Stuart Johns has been good this year, along with Brad Murray, and of course Graham Johns up forward's been playing a bit of a lone hand. Blackburn have been okay in some games this year, and they've had some really serviceable players throughout season 2012. Brad Murray's had a good year, Fagan's been brilliant, and Stuart Johns, along with Graham Johns up forward, they've been okay. They're not going to be able to match it with the class of Baldwin tomorrow, and I expect the Tigers to win by 6 goals plus. Knox are looking to keep their season alive tomorrow afternoon at home at Knox Gardens Reserves against the top of the table Norwood. Pete, how's this one going to go?
It's going to be very interesting to see how the Norwood Football Club cope with transitioning from being the hunter to being the hunted. They're now a game clear on top of the ladder after their super win last week against Baldwin. What I'm worried about tomorrow for the Norsemen is they set themselves for the big match against Baldwin last week. They described it as the most important day in the history of the Norwood Football Club. They rose to the challenge and they got the job done. Will this week be a little bit of a letdown for them as they travel out to Knox Gardens Reserve to take on Knox, who went down last week to Lilydale? Last week, I really liked the game of Brendan McKeer from Knox, playing that transition between centre-half back, centre-half forward, doing whatever his team needed to do. For the Falcons to be competitive tomorrow, they need guys like Ryan Jeffrey and Lucas Bakes to stand up. Luke Williams, their captain, he's been super this year, but he needs to put in the game of his life, and Brett Kay through the midfield needs to give him plenty of run and drive. For Norwood, it's hard to fault the way they've gone about their business this year. Shane Clayton's been great for them. Brent English is kicking goals up forward. Jonathan Wynn's giving their midfielders first use in the ruck. Stuart Hill and Matty Ava have been serviceable. It's a really tough game to pick. That might sound strange with Norwood sitting on top of the ladder, a game clear of the pack, and Knox 3 games now outside the top 5, but I'm going to tip the Falcons in a bit of an upset. As I said, I think Norwood set themselves and built themselves up for last week to the point where they might be a little flat this week. Knox might catch them napping, but they all need to be at their best for things to fall into place. Jacob Castricum needs to lead them by example. I think he can. I'm going to stick with the Falcons to cause the upset of the year in Division 1 and bring Norwood back to the pack.
Well, I don't know what you smoke before you come in to do the Friday preview, Peter Baird, because how you can go past Norwood tomorrow is beyond me. They are in super form. They beat Baldwin last week quite convincingly by 27 points, whereas we got to see firsthand a Knox side who really just weren't up to the challenge all afternoon against a lower place side than them. I don't want to have an argument with you on our second last game, Peter Baird, but how you could go against Norwood tomorrow is completely beyond me. John Knight won't like hearing me say this, but Norwood's going to do it in a canter. Last game on the card in Division 1 tomorrow is out at Eastbrook Reserve with the Rams trying to find some form against East Ringwood.
They just absolutely have to find some form. How the mighty have fallen. A few months ago, we went out to Noble Park to see them play the Bulls out there at the Bull Ring, and a lot of us tipped East Burwood to get over the line. They haven't really fired a shot since, and very disappointing slide down the ladder have East Burwood had. But we look at players like Robbie Campbell, Stephen Henshaw, Alex Fior, Daniel Gribben, Matthew Mariani, and Anthony Mariani as well. Where have these players been? They really need to stand up and stamp their authority on the game this Saturday for East Burwood to get that win they've been after. But on the other side of the coin, East Ringwood have some very handy players on their side as well. Gary Conyers, fantastic forward, 20 goals. Luke Vogels has been effective for them as well, as has Van Ruin, Joel Perry, and Faya Donos been good as well. But I think maybe, I've got a hunch about East Burwood tomorrow afternoon. I think they just need to weather the storm and get through this form slump. I think East Burwood by the barest of margins.
I think East Burwood are a real chance tomorrow to return to the winners list against East Ringwood. The Roos last week, they were gallant in their defeat to Noble Park, being up by 3 goals into the third quarter there. Will that game have taken a lot out of them? Only time will tell. East Burwood's form at home this year hasn't been crash hot. They'll know this. They'll want to rectify it. They need players like Henshaw and O'Reilly, Marcus Carroll and Sammy Kilduff to be right on tomorrow afternoon, along with Mark Holland. If they can shut down Matty Sharp and Cam Purdy and players like Troy Wright and Van Ruin from East Ringwood, anything's possible tomorrow for the Rams, and I think they're going to do it too. East Burwood by 2 goals. Well, that's all 22 games done and dusted across Divisions 4, 3, 2 and 1 in the best local competition in the land. Be sure to tune in tomorrow afternoon from 1 p.m. on 98.1 Radio Eastern as you go local for your football, as the team broadcasts live from Heights Reserve for the Division 2 match of the round, Mooroolbark versus Montrose. It's sure to be a cracking game. So there's only one place to be tomorrow afternoon between hours 1 till 6 on 98.1 Radio Eastern, and of course streaming live through the EFL website.
And don't forget to tune in to EFL Sunday from 10 a.m. till 12 p.m. on Sunday morning, where we chat to the winning coaches from across the Eastern Football League. Proudly brought to you by Akira Urgent Care.
And then next Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, a must-listen to for all EFL fans is The Huddle on 98.1 Radio Eastern. We'll have another local club back in our studio for Club Corner and bring you a lighter look at the Eastern Football League. Next Wednesday night, 6 p.m. on 98.1 Radio Eastern, The Huddle.
It's always a lot of fun when we come together on a Friday afternoon and get to go through all the games across all the divisions in this great competition. I thank my wingmen for this afternoon, Daniel Cencic. We'll see you tomorrow at the game, mate.
Thanks for having me, BWS. It's always a pleasure. Looking forward to the match of the round tomorrow afternoon.
And the big man who milks cows for a living won't be joining us at Heights Reserve. He'll be heading out to the Bull Ring for the big Division 1 clash, Noble Park versus Scoresby. Thanks for joining me today, mate. We'll speak to you soon.
It's becoming a regular Friday afternoon habit now, heading out to the EFL to go through all the games for the Friday preview. Can't wait to get out to the Bull Ring tomorrow. It's going to be a fantastic afternoon as you go local for your footy.
That's it for another edition of the Friday preview. We'll be back again next Friday afternoon for a look at all the matches across the Eastern Football League. And as a wise man once said, stick a fork in us, we're done.